State University, and you guys are here for the AIMHO May webinar in regards to onboarding new staff. So the webinar will be about 45 to 50 minutes, including a Q&A session at the end. You should be able to view the presentation on your computer screen. If you're having any issues with that, please just type it into the chat box and we'll figure something out for you. There will be a handout provided at the end of this presentation or soon after the webinar, so everybody can have it as a resource. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. The microphone feature is on mute, so you guys won't be able to verbally ask questions, but there is a questions bar on the side on the control panel that should have popped up when you guys logged into the webinar. So if you have any questions, please type your questions into there, and at the end of the presentation, I'll come back on and I will ask the questions to Rob, who is presenting, and he'll answer them accordingly. And also, I mean, feel free to tweet about it at any point during the webinar using hashtag AIMHO, or just tweet AIMHO at AIMHO. So now I would like to introduce Rob Budak. He works at Arizona State University and is the Assistant Director of University Housing with Bear at the Honors College. All right, Rob, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Justin, and thank you to AIMHO for this opportunity as well, too. A little bit of background on kind of how we got to this point today and why we're even talking about it. I started at Arizona State University in 2009, and about a year after I began with just some organizational shifting, my first role here was really as the Assistant Director working with recruitment, professional staff recruitment, training, and selection. And so as the position began, we were kind of looking at this conceptually as three distinct functions. But as I kind of had more experience in watching it go, I actually think there's a lot of continuity between all of it. The recruitment part, the training part, and then forward selection with student staff. There's really a connection, I think, to all of it with respect to the building the relationships and helping new staff. Some passion points for me that I'm certain is shared by a lot of people that are a part of this as well too, is that I really enjoy investing in new professionals. I very much believe in the opportunity that accompanies working at Arizona State University. And in general, I want to see new professionals take full advantage of the opportunity and in general be successful here at ASU. And so as I reflect, I think, often on my own time as a young professional or a new professional within Res Life, I'm really at a point now in my career where, in addition to, I think, the love of mentoring students, there's enough of an age difference and a gap between myself and new professionals now that I can start to apply, I think, some of the lessons that I've learned in that. And that's really what I think has ultimately produced what I'm calling onboarding. I'll start by saying that I'm not entirely sure that there's anything incredibly novel about onboarding, although I think that I would hope that people would take away novel ideas from it. I would venture to guess that many people incorporate right now some things with onboarding into what might be their traditional training. But I want to explain a little bit as to why I'm kind of differentiating it here at Arizona State University. In a few minutes, I'm going to go through what was our onboarding schedule last year to kind of give people a sense as to how it differentiates what is our training period afterwards. Let me talk about what some of the goals are for onboarding when we designed it. The first one is that we're really looking for a way to provide, I think the greatest word of onboarding is context, context, context. Context to their new role. When you're in the recruitment phase, it's very much, I think, a sales position. We want you to work here. We love you. We thought you were great. Your interview was fantastic. We want to bring you to campus. We're going to pay you a meal. We want to introduce you to a lot of our leadership. We think you're awesome. This is the place for you. I mean, there's a lot of messages that go into being recruited that I think naturally comes with a sense of sales for all of it. And so when we're talking about what this message does, I think to 23, 24, and 25-year-olds, they walk away and they say, oh, they really like me, that was exciting, and that's kind of where the gut feeling comes in that I think really has a strong indication on whether or not a candidate is going to choose to accept an offer from that institution. And so after the recruitment phase, I think that where candidates are at prior to their arrival on campus is that their expectations of their position are very, very high. And I was thinking about this in particular with Justin Clark in mind, in that when we were recruiting him, I mean, there was a lot of the things that I don't think disingenuous, but opportunities were so forth, just to really get to kind of get him to think about the possibilities. And so while we never said this directly to him, I feel as though the message sort of comes off by saying, oh, do you like to work with student athletes? Well, there's an opportunity to do that too at ASU, Justin. And Justin might be interpreting this and saying, wow, Taylor Kelly, the quarterback of the Sun Devil, the Sun Devil football team is in my hall, and I'm going to be a mentor to him. And we kind of, don't necessarily propagate that exact message, but the excitement that accompanies the sense of opportunity when you're being recruited, I think, is something that a lot of institutions are happy to kind of further and get staff excited about. And so when they arrive to campus, their expectations are very high, and then maybe they're learning some things about, well, there's no actual money to help you do a relocation. So if you're coming in from Florida across the country, it's very expensive to make that move. And then there's kind of what I guess I would call these kind of micro disappointments. Nothing that you can really reflect upon the institution, but, oh, it would have been nice if they had done this, but, I understand, new position, this is what it is, I'm going into it. And so I feel that a great purpose of the onboarding is really to have a very, and I use the term authentic yet professional dialogue to help new staff match up their expectations to more of what reality looks like working at an institution. And I say this having worked here at 5 years. I very much believe in this school, but I also think that this is a very challenging institution to work at. And I would venture to guess that many other people in a recruitment role also would say, this is a challenging school. I mean, I want people to be successful here. One of the things that I say to other recruiters when I talk to them is that the demeanor that you have to take when you go into recruitment is that every single person you hire, you have to believe intrinsically that you are really hiring the best people out there in the field, that you found the absolute best out of the 800 plus candidates at TPE, and you're bringing them in. And if you feel anything less than that, then really I think challenge yourself as a recruiter, and is that role right for you going forward? Because as the recruiter, you're the person that is their first contact. You're the one giving them all the phone calls, you're giving them the emails, we're still in touch with you, we want you to be here. You're kind of managing your HR processes in the back, and I'm sure everyone is aware that all of our HR processes probably could use a little bit more speediness to them. But in general, you're trying to manage all these relationships going together, and you're kind of the lifeline of the candidate that's out there right now. And so in their first few weeks of coming to campus, you're that smiling face they met when they felt really good about the institution. And your goal now at this point is to kind of transition them and ease them into how they feel about their recruitment to make that, I think, similar to how they feel about their new role. And so again, I'll say that the best way to do that, I feel, is in general authentic yet professional dialogues that provide context for what the institution is actually doing. A point that I want to make about onboarding before I get into the schedule here is that I feel that it's differentiated from training, and that when we start to think about training at, I think, a very fundamental level, the conversation usually begins with, well, what do new staff need to know? So we end up making lists and say they need to know how to do this function, they need to know how to do lockouts, so we use this software system, use this, and then we start to think of this in terms of modules. Well, we need a 1-hour module with this presenter here and to do this here, and what are the outcomes? The outcomes are expected that they're going to learn how to do this and know how to do that and so forth. And from a macro view, when you have a training week or weeks and so forth, and it's really just kind of a series of 60-minute modules of next, 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 and so forth, I feel that really sends a wrong message to 23, 24, 25-year-olds that are coming here and expecting to feel like they're going to apply leadership to connect students to the institution, to help them be successful, to do graduation. These are all tools that we talk about in training that help make that successful, and I think it's important, but when their first experience on campus is really to go through, I think, what at times can be kind of a mind-numbing, and I would venture to guess that some other colleagues on the line have thought in the past of, oh, I can't wait to get past the training so that I can just get in my office and get going and start preparing for students to arrive, email my student staff, and so forth, that we really needed some way to kind of differentiate it. And if I had to project the evolution of onboarding at Arizona State University, I would say that onboarding is about getting encultured into the experience of working at ASU. And I would hope that the training eventually becomes the larger welcome to ASU experience. Here is our united set of goals, and these are all the tools that are going to help you do it here, and recalculating, I think, how we brand and message this. But let me go through a little bit of the schedule that we had to kind of give everyone a sense to it all. The onboarding schedule last year was designed primarily by myself, but then also with many members of the recruitment team. And so again, there's that sense of keeping a sense of continuity about who are new staff seeing as they transition here. Obviously, they have a new supervisor that might have reached out, touched base with them, but they have never met their supervisor yet. And the relationship between the new supervisor and the new staff is very different between the recruiter and the recruitment team and the staff. Whereas the recruiter kind of espouses, I think, this, oh, you're a champion, we loved you, we brought you here, and I think everyone here knows how it is that one goes about forging a relationship and establishing credibility with the new supervisor. So using this fantastic technology here, which I'm incredibly impressed with, that's making this webinar, I understand that everyone has a chance to take a look at my screen right now, and so I brought up the agenda that we had from last year for our onboarding. And I'm just going to walk everyone through it to get a sense of as to what this looked like. Now, some more information for you. Our onboarding week was the first week that staff were here, and we only included new staff, select members of the supervisory crowd, so really getting kind of an opportunity to blend supervisors and new staff, and then a few other members of the recruitment team that served, I think, largely as transition buddies to help them kind of navigate the first few weeks living in the state of Arizona. So you can see right here, first page, it's time, you're invited. I chose this logo, it's time, because the message that I largely talk about in my, frankly, constant communication with new staff is, this is exciting, we can't wait to have you out here, let's take advantage of some of the great things that ASU is doing in the larger context of higher education, and really pump this up to look like it is time for you to take advantage of this opportunity. And that you're invited as well too, so that continues the message of you have been chosen, we're excited to have you here, we want you to be a part of this. And so I use the first one, it's time to start your Sun Devil story. That's a popular, I think, that's a marketing tool that we use at ASU. What will be your Sun Devil story? We talk about residential life onboarding welcome. Those are all the staff, part of which were, all of those, I'm sorry, the names right there. You can see Justin Clark at the very end. Those were the new staff that we had last year, and so this was the first time when I sent this out. I sent it out to all of them over an email, and I also copied all of their colleagues as well too, and so it was exciting to see the future Sun Devil colleagues, people that will end up being your friends, your support, people that you're working with on the same email with our current staff right now. So I'm not going to go through this, but this was sort of a personal message for myself to all the people that we hired with, where I just kind of go through and say I am extremely excited to have everyone here. I felt like we did an excellent job with our recruitment last year, and again, just a chance to sort of punctuate and say I believe in you and I believe in your opportunity to be successful here. The one thing I do want to highlight at the very bottom is the phrase "we're all in it together," and I think that was really when the team and I put this together, that was strategically chosen as sort of the theme for onboarding, because it begins to start to push the idea out here that ASU is challenging. It is very, very difficult to work at this institution, and a common, I think, pitfall that new professionals get into is what we'll kind of call grass is greener syndrome, where in the fall semester they'll have maybe their first challenges, they'll fall into their first pitfall, maybe they'll get yelled at by their first senior leadership for making a mistake that they may or may not have been aware of what they were doing. And I think that establishing that sense of community right away with the sense of we're all in it together really dispels the myth that everyone here at ASU makes mistakes. And so onboarding day one, and really the first day that staff come, they spend a lot of it in HR orientation, but And I don't want to draw too much attention to this, but you can see right there, I mean, most of the agenda for the schedule is you're spending an HR orientation. You're getting a lot of the logistics of your day done. We had the entire staff, every single one of our community director staff, come out for lunch to meet the new people when they did get that 1-hour lunch break. You'll see a lot of pictures that I'm including in this, and the first picture I had was the recruitment team right there. And again, that's really to put smiling faces and people with their experience here. And so I think that many of us have probably worked at institutions before where the first thing you might get is a manual or an instruction sheet and so forth. Let's really try and humanize your experience of being at ASU. As a little idiosyncratic jokes at the bottom, I put these pro tips at the best, just kind of give people a sense of what is sort of the norm of living in Arizona. Don't overdress in the desert heat. I have seen, just like as you see with freshmen moving in, new staff come in, they want to make a great impression right away, and so while everyone else, including leadership staff, are sort of wearing a polo or dressed down for the summer, or maybe even jeans because it's 116 out, you have a new staff member coming in who obviously wants to make a good impression, but they're wearing like a full suit on the first day. And so really trying to help dispel that and say it's okay if you kind of dress down as well. So drinking lots of water. Moving into day 2, this is where I think the experience really started. Now, I want to draw a little bit of a difference, I think, between the start of this and what you see with the rest of it. Many different trainings and onboardings begin with the kind of galactic welcome overview, mission, vision, large stuff like that. And I think that's important, that leadership always has a chance to set the stage and set the tone of what are our shared goals. But I also think that at times when you're presenting that kind of welcome, department overview, mission, vision, and so forth like that, that kind of furthers the sales message. Look at these awesome things we're doing. Here's the goals. Here's our mission. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be the best and so forth. And so, well, I think that can be an important North Star for how our work is going to go. It's something to inform us, and then there's sort of here's the level of the staff, and let's kind of move more towards the reality of how we continue to make progress towards accomplishing what our ultimate vision and mission is. Moving into some of these presentations that we have, now you can see a little bit about what the heart and soul of what onboarding was about. From 1 o'clock to 2:30 with a small group, new staff, we talked about ASU in context. And so for this particular session, we talked a little bit about what do we mean when we say one university, many places? What is an authentic dialogue? And then more importantly, and I use this term a lot, what does this feel like to new staff throughout the course of the entire year? What does it feel like to be a new staff member at one of our pan-campus locations? How often are you going to see colleagues? Are you going to feel connected? These are questions that I think, uh-oh, did my audio go out? Uh-oh.
Your audio is fine, Rob. We've lost your screen, though.
Uh-oh. You want to reset the... want to try resetting, I think, a little bit of, or that show screen?
Yeah. Is that option showing up on your screen? Show my screen?
I am not seeing it right now.
Okay. We'll try to get that back to you as fast as we can.
Okay. Well, I'll just keep going through a few things of it, and if it comes back, it does great, and if it doesn't, no big deal. And I want to certainly turn it over in a few minutes to have people ask questions about what we talked about. The second day of onboarding, as I was mentioning, is when oh, here we go. Perfect. Show my screen. Are we back?
Looks good.
Fantastic. I'm going to bring up the sheet again. Everyone can still see the screen?
You should be good.
Okay, fantastic. So starting again, this is where we start to talk a little bit about context. I think that there are a lot of great platitudes that we use to talk about ASU, and I fully support the use of all of them because I think that not only is it genuine, but it also is a great way to discuss how our administrative model works with one university many places. But in relation to a 23, 24, 25, 26-year-old, the question that these modules address is, so this is fantastic about ASU, how does this relate to you? What does this experience look like to you in August, in September, in October, in November, etc., throughout the entire year? And then you can see at the very bottom, there's more of those pro tips. Got a free moment, introduce yourself to someone on campus. I think the nature of all of our jobs is really about building relationships, and so I mean that's essentially the heart of what I think onboarding is as well too. We move to the third day. Back onto it all, getting to know people a little bit more, relationships. When I speak about relationships, the essence of your work at ASU, you can see the session at 10:30, a group discussion on relationship building, our email culture, the people you communicate with. Again, when I say our email culture, that's about having an authentic dialogue about what the workplace really looks like. And so I think that there are a lot of things that I observe new staff get into, and there's a lot of sort of cultural and social norms about working at an institution that people that have been there for a while just get it. But when you think about training, you know, let's train on conduct, let's train on this software, we don't really think to put in a training on social and cultural norms of working at the institution. And so a large part of, I think, what in particular what onboarding was about was just having dialogues about what should you dress in every single day. When can you dress down? What does this look like to dress up? Who's going to give you a stink eye or a dirty look? And I think that's because in general, to try and get people to some extent inoculated against what might happen and give them the power to make their own decisions to help them be successful. Adjusting to the pace of change at ASU, a discussion of work-life balance and strategies. This is, again, really a conversation of how is this work going to look like for you and how is it going to feel over the course of the fall semester. A thing that I think I observe with new professionals is that the first year always is very challenging. You're learning all the systems, you don't have the relationships built in yet, and so I feel as though a failure on part of our leadership is that when we have a new staff member who goes through their first couple of maybe mistakes or challenges and right away with an opening, that they get burnt out so fast or they get discouraged or kind of that sense of infectious, well, this place is messed up, I've been here 6 months and so forth, I need to go, the grass is greener somewhere else and everything. I really feel that that is a failure on behalf of our leadership and support. And I have thrown out there before as well, too, that I almost would say that a staff member in their first year at ASU has to choose to fail in order to be let go, that they really cannot fail. The failure ends up being more on our part to make sure that they were prepared or have those kind of connections and authentic dialogues to, to help them be ready for it all. I included an opportunity in there that we really set the tone to talk with the leadership team, the supervisory team, so you can see get to know your assistant director. And we prepped and primed the assistant directors to really come in there and say, what is it that you're really looking for? Recognizing that our jobs are hard, what are your hopes and what are your aspirations for this new class of CDs coming in that hopefully that some things that they'll capitalize on. What are some critical benchmarks and indeed, I'm going to throw another word out there, what are some critical competencies and goals that you would hope a first-year staff member at ASU would accomplish? And so moving into day 4th, this was the day off, July 4th, we try and include a lot of team builders, a lot of social opportunities. I know some staff and institutions out there, and we would love to do this as well too, have the budget to be able to go do like a camping trip or a retreat and so forth. I think that this is largely the spirit of what that was looking like. But really just opportunities, I think, for that CD level, that's our staff that we're talking about, community director level staff, to start to bond and talking a little bit about these are the people that are coming in that will be your colleagues, your friends, your support, when you get that nasty email from so-and-so or you get that duty call at 2 in the morning, these are the people that are really going to be here to help you out. And so putting, I think, a vested interest in them to really want to take part and be a part of meeting the new folks. Getting closer to the end now, the 5th day of onboarding. This is where we had, I think, a little bit more technical conversations about what does your immediate work environment look like. I think ASU speaks a lot about a residential college model, and I think as an organizational model it is fantastic with respect to impacting outcomes that the university is definitely prioritizing, retention, graduation rates, and so forth. But again, in trying to understand this from the eyes of a 23, 24, 25, or 26 years old, they're looking to come in and say, I want to make an impact on someone. I want to connect with someone. I want to provide leadership with someone. They're not necessarily blank slates. They have a vision as to what it means to work like in res life. So how is it that you take that sort of fundamental vision that they have and help them see that just because you're working in the IRA Fulton Schools of Engineering Residential College doesn't mean that all of your programs have to be about video games and building cars and so forth like that. That the same types of things that really you're excited about doing here with our students, which I believe ultimately ties together and just having a connection, providing leadership, is possible every place that you work with students. After lunch, you can see right there very clearly social norms of the department, how to look, talk, and feel like you've been here for years. And I will be very honest with you, we will have a lexicon of the language that we're using at any given moment. If a new staff member, and I'm sure Justin is aware of this too, were to sit in a meeting and say, well, what about the satellite campuses that are out at Poly or the satellite campus at West? And then they'd get a bunch of dirty looks and kind of a gasp and you know, we don't call it satellite campuses and so forth. And you know, it becomes an embarrassing moment for someone that really had no idea whatsoever and was just applying good judgment in how to refer to another campus. And so, you know, we throw out there and try and, you know, go through, I think, what are sometimes a little bit silly rituals to say, this is how we talk about it here, and these are potentially some of the pitfalls that you'd run into by not understanding it within this context and framework. Again, at the very end of the day, more opportunities to do just more social activities, talking about values as well there too. On Saturday, there was a trip that was planned for the Lazy River, so more of that. This was sort of in the spirit of, I know what many people do in like retreats and so forth. Talked about some of the desired outcomes for onboarding week, and I certainly think that this could be reviewed for this year and refreshed and updated based on changing models at ASU as well too. But below, and I think this was very important for new staff to get, so this PowerPoint presentation they did receive in their email boxes before they even arrived to ASU. This is what we're trying to do in this week. And I say that because if they read this and they acknowledge that this would be a benefit to them, then that sense of, oh, I just want to get through this, you know, so I can get to my office and set it up, tends to dissipate a little bit more, and they appreciate the value of what they're going through. I'm sure that many people in here are aware that, you know, successful trainings obviously require sort of dynamic presentations and that just constant lectures and PowerPoints. Probably not webinars, is not the thing that's the most engaging for staff to sit around and do all day. But I think being upfront and honest about what the person that's designing this is trying to do helps a lot in establishing that rapport. Last picture I had right there, again, this is just our associate director, and took a silly photo and I brought it up there. He didn't know that I took this of all, but again, it just kind of echoes the point of trying to normalize the fact that we're a fun place to be despite our challenges, and you know, we're all in it together. And so as soon as our onboarding week is done, we had a weekend for that, and then the next week we moved into, which was coordinated by more people, what became our formalized training. And lessons that we learned after this year was that, as I said before, the spirit of onboarding week really needs to kind of blend into training itself and not have that kind of discrete changeover to move into module, module, module. As a training practice, I really hate to break up what you're doing based on times. Because when you say that this module needs to only take 60 minutes, but it only goes 45, then you kind of stutter and fill in the blanks for 15 more minutes and just talk and talk and talk, when really it only took 45 minutes to present. Similarly, some really great content or good conversations might go more than an hour, and you don't necessarily want to end that. And so that, I think, is a critical factor between having a discrete set of trainings versus providing an experience that you want people to be onboarded to and feel connected with. So with that, I will pause right there, and hopefully we didn't lose anyone with the connection going out, but see if people have other questions or comments or thoughts, or if not, if there's none, then certainly thank you all very much for the opportunity to present this.
So if anybody has any questions for Rob, you can type them in the questions panel, and I will read them to him as they come in. I'll just start off by asking one, just because it was something I thought of while he was talking. So my name's Justin, as everybody knows, because I introduced it. One question I have is, out of all the stuff that we do here at ASU, what do you think would work best at every school, or like what is one thing that we do at ASU that you think is such an important thing that any institution should be doing it if they can?
Well, I think it's the nature of our field to really attract people that invest in others and care about others. I mean, I think that's sort of the core and the heart of our job when we talk about student success and graduation. I think a critical lesson that I have learned in all of this is that at institutions that I've worked in the past, when we think about recruitment, it comes around as sort of oh, we have a vacancy this year, we need a recruitment committee. And so some staff, maybe there's a dedicated recruiter, maybe not, maybe it's an assistant director, but they just become the head of recruitment, and they put together this committee, and the goal is just to hire people. And what I would say would be the takeaway from this is that there has to be a connection with the relationship building really begins the second that you reach out to that staff member and encourage them to apply for the job. And so that email that goes out, that you're scanning hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of postings at TPE, and you see that resume that looks like it would qualify, and you're interested in what their experiences are, as much as possible, begin the relationship with that. People are recruited all the time during the TPE era. In the TPE timeframe in March and February and so forth, you're getting hundreds of emails from a bunch of people. Yours will stick out if you say, illustrate that you literally did read their resume for more than just 30 seconds and kind of glance to make sure they hit the min quals, and maybe reference something that you saw in their resume that you thought was great. That's the beginning of the relationship. It goes forward. The next point is the interview, and then the on-campus, and then the period after the on-campus until decision time until coming to campus and onboarding, and frankly even onboarding to the transition to their supervisors. And then I also don't think it's necessarily a fault of the recruitment people to check in with the people that they recruited throughout the course of the entire year to say, how's your experience going? How's your relationship with your supervisor going? What do you think about it being here so far? And then giving them that chance, ideally the following year, to give back to the next class coming in.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. It doesn't look like anybody has any other questions. At least nobody's typed them into the question box. So I guess we can just call it at this, because it doesn't seem as though there's any other questions. Unless you have anything else you want to add at the end?
No, I think I'm good. Again, Justin, I just want to thank you very much for this opportunity. I do believe very much in this work, and I know that I'm surrounded by people, I'm sure, that feel similarly about it. And I really appreciate the time to share some of our thoughts and what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, and thank you for coming on. We appreciate you coming on and doing this webinar, and thank you everybody who attended.